Someone from product arrives with a genuinely good idea. Customers keep asking whether their numbers are normal. So let's show them. Your conversion rate is 3%. The average across the platform is 5. It is a great feature. Customers will pay for it. And it requires one query that reads across every tenant you have, which is precisely the thing 6 episodes of work exists to make impossible. This is the moment a lot of platforms quietly undo their own isolation, because the request is legitimate and the person asking is not wrong. The answer is not no. The answer is that this cannot be a query against your production database. And the reason is worth understanding properly. So why not just write the query? 3 reasons, and they stack. First, you would need a role that bypasses row-level security. And the moment that role exists and is reachable from your application, your isolation is now a matter of which code path ran, which is exactly where episode 1 started. Second, it is the noisy neighbor with a suit on. An aggregate across every tenant is the single heaviest query on the platform, and you want to run it against the database serving checkout. And third, the shapes are just wrong. Your production schema is built for reading one tenant's rows quickly. Analytics wants to sweep all of them slowly. Those two want opposite indexes, opposite hardware, and opposite failure behavior, and one database cannot be good at both. So the shape is a pipeline instead of a join. Data leaves the operational database on a schedule into a separate analytical store, and that crossing is the only place in your architecture where tenant boundaries are deliberately collapsed. It is one component, it runs in one place, and it is the only thing anyone has to audit. Everything downstream reads the warehouse, never production. And the win is not only safety, it is that the boundary becomes a thing rather than a habit. Instead of trusting that no engineer ever writes a cross-tenant query, you have exactly one pipeline where crossing is legal, with a name, an owner, and a review. If someone wants a new cross-tenant feature, they change that component, and someone notices. Now the part everyone gets wrong, because it feels solved once the data has been averaged. An aggregate is not automatically anonymous. If your benchmark cohort is manufacturing companies in Cape Town, and there are 2 of them, then the average of those 2 is not a statistic. It is one competitor's number, and the other one can do the arithmetic. So you set a minimum cohort size, and you refuse to answer below it, and you refuse in a way that does not itself leak. Because if the API says not enough companies match, then someone can narrow filters until it flips and learn exactly how many of their competitors exist. Refuse the same way whether the cohort is 2 or 200. And watch the differencing attack. 2 queries that are each safe can be subtracted to isolate one tenant, which means the rule has to live in the API, not in the query. And the last piece is not technical. Somebody has to own that crossing, and it should be written down. Because what happens in practice is that the pipeline gets built carefully by people who understand exactly why it is dangerous. And then 2 years later, somebody adds one more field to the export for a good reason in a small pull request. And that field happens to be a customer name. The safeguard is not cleverness. It is that the export has a schema which is explicit about what crosses, defaulting to nothing. So adding a field is a deliberate act that someone reviews as a privacy decision rather than a data plumbing chore. Every long-lived platform I have seen leak this way leaked through a boundary that used to be well understood and stopped being anyone's job. That is the architecture complete. Isolated, enforced, contextual, fair, changeable, and able to answer the business without leaking. Which leaves the finale and the questions a real platform gets asked. How fast can a new customer exist? Which of your customers are actually unprofitable? And when you deploy something broken, how many of them find out? See you in the last one.